I've always known my voice made people look twice, and not always in a good way. I'm from a little town outside Birmingham, Alabama, raised by my grandmother, who called sweet tea the cure for everything, and taught me words like ain't and finna before I could even spell my name. I used to think sounding country was something I needed to scrub out of myself to be taken seriously. But the older I got, the more I understood my accent wasn't a flaw. It was a living record of history, of place, of people who survived things the world still refuses to name. That's what made me want to study linguistics in the first place. I didn't just want to analyze language, I wanted to honor the roots of how we speak. So when I got into the graduate program at Ellison University, one of the most competitive in the country, I knew I was stepping into a world where everything from my hair to my verbs would be under scrutiny. But I didn't expect the blow to come so early or so publicly. If you've ever been underestimated just because of how you speak, hit like and subscribe. I still feel it in my chest, like a bruise that never healed right. It happened on a Thursday. We were in Seminar Room B, the kind with high ceilings and windows that look out over nothing but brick. I was presenting my thesis proposal, The Cultural Authority of African American Vernacular English, and I'd practiced that title so many times I could whisper it in my sleep. There were 11 students in the room, all white except for me and a Korean girl named Min. And then there was Dr. Judith Kinsley, the legend, the one everyone warned me not to cross, whose books lined the shelves of every university library, whose dry British accent made everything sound like gospel. I barely got 3 sentences in before it started. I said the word ask, pronouncing it naturally, how I always have AKS. And she did it. She snickered. Loud. Not a cough, not a polite clear of the throat. A deliberate, sharp little laugh that made every head in the room turn. She said, sorry, just, could you repeat that word again? The standard version, please. The air snapped cold. I swallowed. Repeated it her way. She smiled like she was doing me a favor. I tried to move on, but it kept happening. Discourse communities turned into her interrupting me to clarify my choice of phrasing. Double negatives earned an eye roll and a muttered, charming. I looked around for help. Jordan, our TA, and someone I'd shared fries with at orientation, wouldn't meet my eyes. Min had her head down, taking notes like her life depended on it. I finished early. Nobody clapped. I sat down with my hands clenched so tight my nails left half-moon marks in my palms. Dr. Kinsley thanked me in a voice so sweet it felt like venom and said, well, that was certainly different. I nodded, pretending that didn't feel like a slap. When class ended, I left fast. In the hallway, I heard someone mimic me behind my back. They kissed me again, and laughter trailed me all the way to the stairs. I don't remember the walk home, just the way my chest burned, and how the words I'd spoken with pride now felt like evidence against me. I cried in the stairwell of my apartment building, then inside my studio with the blinds drawn. I didn't call my grandma. I didn't want her to hear the hurt in my voice. I just lay there on the floor, arms over my eyes, replaying it all on loop. The snicker, the silence, the shame. And then I got mad. Not loud mad. The kind of mad that simmers. The kind that refuses to be swallowed. I pulled out my mic, the cheap USB one I'd used for my little side podcast, Everyday Language, which I'd started last year more for myself than anyone else. I hit record, and I let it all out. I told them, whoever was listening, that mocking someone's voice is mocking their mother, their cousins, their porch conversations, their choir songs. That what Dr. Kinsley did wasn't critique, it was linguistic racism, plain and simple. I broke down how AV is grammar rules, structure, rhythm. I explained how black folks had to carve out their own codes just to survive in a world that taught them silence was safer than speech. And I said her name, quietly, but clearly. Not to drag her, but the name what happened. Because too often, people like her get to write the books and mock the dialects in the same breath. I published the episode, turned off my laptop, and went to bed hollow. I didn't expect it to matter. My podcast had 12 listeners, maybe 15 on a good day. But something about the truth in my voice must have caught wind. Because what started as a cry in the dark was about to echo louder than I could have imagined. I didn't know anything had changed until I walked back in a seminar room the next week and noticed something strange. People were quiet. Not the usual sleepy, pre-class shuffle, but the kind of quiet that crackles. Some students looked at me too long. Others didn't look at all. Jordan gave me this weird, nervous smile that said sorry without actually saying it. I figured maybe someone heard the podcast, maybe one of my friends had shared it, but it wasn't until halfway through the lecture that I realized something much bigger was happening. Dr. Kinsley was droning on about sociolinguistic mapping or whatever dry theory she always liked to throw at us without context, and then, right in the middle of her sentence, the loudspeaker in the hallway crackled to life. Everyone froze. At first, it was just static. Then my voice came through. Clear. Strong. Raw. When someone laughs at the way you speak, what they're really saying is, you don't belong here. My chest collapsed. It was my podcast. Not a clip. Not a snippet. A whole damn segment playing over the university building's PA system. Kinsley's face twisted, confused, then furious. She stepped toward the door like she was going to find whoever was behind the controls and wring their neck. But the audio kept going. African-American vernacular English isn't lazy. It's lineage. It's lived. It's coded survival. I wanted to melt into the floor. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stop it, because now everyone knew what I really thought, what I'd really said. I thought I'd be expelled, that I'd get called aggressive or insubordinate, or whatever word they use when a black woman speaks with her whole chest. But then something even stranger happened. People didn't laugh. They listened. Even Jordan leaned forward, eyes wide, like he was hearing me for the first time. A girl in the back wiped a tear. Men stopped writing. Outside the classroom, students gathered in the hallway, phones out, recording the broadcast as it echoed down the corridors. Someone must have played it on loop, because it didn't stop after one pass. I grabbed my bag and ran. I didn't even wait for the class to end. My legs carried me down the steps, past the building, all the way to the lawn where a crowd had formed around a portable speaker hooked into the PA access panel, an old one usually used for announcements and fire drills. There was a sticky note on the panel that said, in scratchy handwriting, "We hear you, Tia." I didn't know what to do with that. I just stood there, heart pounding, until a group of students surrounded me, not jeering, but nodding, clapping, thanking me. "That episode changed how I think about my ESL students," said one girl. Another said, "I didn't know this stuff had actual rules. I just thought it was slang." By the end of the day, the podcast had hit 80,000 streams. Then 300,000. Then over 1 million. Articles came out with titles like "Grad Student Blows the Lid Off Linguistic Racism in Viral Audio," and "The Accent They Mock Just Educated the Country." And then came the email from Dean Huerta. Short and polite. "Let's meet. I have something to discuss with you." I nearly threw up. I walked into her office expecting to be formally reprimanded. But Dr. Huerta, Latina, sharp-eyed, with a kindness that didn't beg to be liked, offered me tea. And then she said, "Tia, I've been waiting for someone like you to walk through this building for years." I didn't understand. She told me the administration had heard the recording, that she had played it on the PA, that she'd been looking for a way to shake up the curriculum, to make it less colonial, less sanitized, and my podcast was her lightning bolt. She asked if I consider turning my thesis into a pilot course. AV in power, history in the mouth. That's what she wanted to call it. I said nothing for a full minute. Then I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the weight of what had just happened hadn't settled yet. The girl they mocked for how she talked was now being asked to teach. Meanwhile, Dr. Kinsley was placed on academic review, a polite way of saying her tenure wasn't as invincible as she thought. But justice didn't feel clean. Not yet, because the silence in that room when I was being humiliated still echoed louder than the applause now. The students who chuckled, the TA who looked away, they hadn't been forced to examine what they let slide. And even though I'd become a symbol, a trending topic, a voice, what I really wanted was something smaller. Not fame, not pity, just someone to look me in the eye and say, "We failed you. And maybe, just maybe, we're listening now." The auditorium was packed, students, faculty, even local reporters, and somehow I was standing center stage, mic in hand, delivering the keynote at the university's new panel, Language, Race, and Power. I wasn't nervous. I was charged. I told them everything about that day in Seminar Room B, about the snicker that still echoed in my dreams, about how easy it is to humiliate someone under the guise of correction. I spoke without notes, without fear, and when I said, "Mocking someone's voice is mocking their existence," the room went dead silent, like everyone finally understood. And then, during the Q&A, a hand went up I hadn't expected to see. Dr. Kinsley. Her voice, usually crisp and cold, came out soft, cracking. "I've spent decades studying languages," she said, "but I never stopped to hear the ones I couldn't control. For that, I'm sorry. It wasn't performative. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. I didn't forgive her, not on the spot. I just nodded and said, "The fact that you're listening now means more than laughing then." And that moment, with every eye on us, felt heavier than any grade or title. Because it wasn't about winning. It was about being heard. And for the first time, I wasn't speaking alone. I was speaking for every voice they'd ever tried to erase.